Warning. The following content may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever you are time. Welcome back. Glad to be here again. One more week of Whispered Insights. Esteban Kolsky, the host. You know that I don't say much because I don't know what to say. So let's see. Do I have any announcements? No. Next week is going to be Mr. Jesus Hoyos, El Padrino de Latinoamérica. We're going to be talking about data governance. Week after that, Liz Miller is back. After that, we have John Reed. Then we have Doug Searles from the Culture Manifesto. And then to finish the month of October, we are going with Alan Bergson and Jeff Gomez to talk about narratives. So that's kind of like the only announcement that I have. And let's get started with today's show. I'm actually looking forward to this session for a long time. My guest today is a former analyst and a current investor / advisor. Somebody who's actually done a lot of work and oversaw the transition from Salesforce automation into commerce, and who has a lot of experience and knowledge to add. And somebody who's going to do his own intro himself, so I don't actually ruin his reputation. So without much further ado, Mr. Craig Rosenberg.
Hey, yes.
Crowd goes wild if there was a crowd. You know?
I'm just glad Jesus is taking data governance, because that would definitely not be the topic you'd want me to talk about.
Really? Now we might have to, because I don't think that I never said there's only one truth about everything, you know? So.
Yeah. So anyway, So thank you, Esteban. I've been looking forward to this. I just love talking to Esteban. He'll call me on a hike in Nevada and we'll just talk, and it's just amazing. I wish I would record those conversations. So I was an analyst at one time. And I was the co-founder of Topo. We were a research advisory firm focused on sales and marketing. And then we were acquired by Gartner. I spent 2.5 years at Gartner as a VP Distinguished Analyst in sales practice. And now I'm the Chief Platform Officer at Scale Venture Partners. So I'm not an investor, but I work with the portfolio on their go-to-market. That's kind of, our claim to fame is moving organizations from founder sales to go-to-market machines. So it's my team that helps, these folks with the advisory they need, the information they need, tools, templates, et cetera, so that they can, move to that as fast as possible and start going up to the right.
So would you say that most of your focus is in B2B sales then?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. So let's start with a simple question. Why does B2B sales suck?
Well, that's an interesting question.
Well, I have many, but that's just the beginning. I mean, I'd love to know. I mean, from your perspective, you've been doing this for a while and you're advising people. And my perspective on this is like, if you get past all the bad rep that it has for sleazy douchebag salespeople and everything, right? Still, we don't get the results that we think we should get out of a B2B sale, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. It's funny that you say that we don't get the results. I was, I'm sure my old, the CEO of Topo, my old business partner, Scott Albro. We were doing a podcast with him. It's not released yet, but we're asking him about sales tech. And he said, well, look, we had this on versus sales tech with this idea that it was going to move the needle, and it didn't. We've had basically for years, we've had the same quota attainment forever. And it's actually now gone down with the new business environment. So we were never able to sort of push it up and over the top. We've always sort of had this thing. It's like tried and true, where we've got a top 30%. We've got this fat middle of pretty good, and then we have bad. My experience has been primarily in B2B tech sales. Mm-hmm. And what you'll find there is that, product market fit definitely can trump everything, where you've got a lot of sales reps can make a lot of money in tech, and oftentimes the product, the market, the category will help drive that. And they're not incented to continue to improve their craft. Now, I will defend those that are dedicated to improving their craft. But they're, look, I mean, I always tell people right now we're in, a situation where the business environment changed so much that actually we need better execution and we need better B2B sales reps. And I'm telling people, man, we were on a run there for a while where you could just throw bodies at the problem and they were going to close deals. I mean, in that last end of the gold rush, the top, right? I mean, you had sales reps just cleaning up and, there's just an onrush of buying SaaS.
So, well, you said the new business environment twice. You mean post-pandemic being the new business environment, or are we talking about something else? I mean, we also have AI entering the fray. We had, the consolidation of technologies and cloud-native models. I mean, is there one or all three or more than that?
Well, I mean, I think we're in it's a tricky buying environment, right? I mean, you went from, in my opinion, the pandemic was the free money environment where there was we had a different way that people bought everything.
Right.
A perfect example of that is you could sell, let's just take a SaaS perspective. You could sell a deal directly to the user. Okay. That's not the lowest level, but like a manager level user, you could get that done. You could get that done in 3 days. Like at the end of the quarter, you hadn't talked to that person, you could get it done. Now that same deal goes through, however many stakeholders in the buying process. About 25-30% of those stakeholders are shadow. We don't even know who they are. There's people that will come in and have to sign off on your deal who literally could care less about what it is that what it does. And that includes, the finance department. We're still hearing stories of $10,000 deals going through the CFO. So I'm talking actually less about sort of big technology changes, because AI, as you said, will drive it has driven a whole spur of interest, right? But actually selling deals has become complex again, I guess you'd say. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you and I have gray hair. Selling software has always been hard, right? But we have these moments in time where we get these rushes and it does get easier. Right now, it's just hard again. It just means that you have to execute in a much better way. So like the B2B sellers that suck are getting destroyed.
Yeah. But how is this different from before the pandemic when we used to have these long lead cycles and long decision making and CFOs involved and procurement. My personal favorite in selling is always procurement because they're such nice people that they're eager to help, right? So I mean, isn't this the same thing that we had before the pandemic then? The buying environment, the model?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. It's like selling software has always been hard, but we go through these rushes, and at the end of those rushes, it gets really easy.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, yeah, I would agree with that. Although this one does feel a little bit different. So if I take what you just said and sort of the actual ability to close business, I'll just address both. AI is driving interest. Like I'll give you an example in the sales tech market. You rarely see a CRO or a sales leader go, I better learn about that technology. That's not how they roll. I mean, a CIO does, or a CISO does, right? Or CISO. And, they do. That's their, they view that fundamentally as their job. But you rarely see a CRO going, my God, I need to figure out what this tech is. And now we see that with AI, it's driving interest and people wanting to talk all the time. It's the end. It's just harder to get through sales processes right now than it were buying processes. But as you said, look, software's always been hard to sell. So it's really in many ways a return to the mean, although, there's some big adjustments that need to happen. And, so it's, anyway, that's kind of what I'm talking about. So both things are happening at the same time, which is really interesting.
This is interesting because you're going on a different tack that I actually had originally planned.
I know. Sorry.
But no, that's okay. No, this is better. But this is what I want. I want an honest conversation. Forget about how automation could have changed, B2B sales and how Salesforce automation became commerce and everything. Talk to me a little bit about this AI. How is AI affecting sales? And by extension, how can AI affect other parts of their enterprise? I mean, you said that people that normally wouldn't care about AI are actually getting into AI. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
I mean, understanding it, right?
I mean, every request I'm getting, I'm sure you are right now for speaking, is about AI for whatever. And it's not like we're not getting the crowd, and we're not getting necessarily the usual suspects. I mean, like if you take in the world of SFA and the world of revenue tech, right? AI is just changing, right? The amount of information on what's happening in the market is happening so fast. We're seeing an onrush of startups. We're seeing the incumbents wanting to, I mean, that Salesforce, what was Dreamforce called? The AI capital of the world or something, like it had like,
yeah, something like that.
But it's so you're seeing a rush for everyone wanting to understand this stuff. But it doesn't necessarily, it will help you get people in the door to talk to you, but it hasn't necessarily.
So here's the interesting part, right? I mean, I spotted a trend before the pandemic of Salesforce morphing into commerce, because you said it. I mean, 30% plus the top, maybe plus minus are the top, but the other 60% of the people were not really pulling their way. And I'm not saying this against anybody. It's just the way that the business evolved, right? It became more complicated. You needed to do different things. And then a lot of that lower level could have been put into commerce, and we did that during the pandemic, and we saw something, and that's the thesis that I started with. But like you said, and this is actually when you said that, you changed my mind, because virtually every conversation I have these days from anybody, is about how AI is changing the world of selling. And my previous thesis that Salesforce automation became commoditized and it moves to commerce is completely busted by the fact that Salesforce automation is becoming more AI-centric and more defined, and then commerce is a subsidiary of it, or like an ancillary part of it. I mean, would you agree with that? Or
yeah, I mean, I think sorry, I know you want to talk about the commerce.
No, Craig, I want to talk about what you want to talk about. That's why you're here.
You and I know how to derail a conversation in the right direction. Yeah. So no, like if you think about, so first of all, I mean, I think the way on the SFA side, I left Dreamforce going, this is going to be, whether it is AI, but like we have to figure out a way to talk about this in the right way. And I think from a seller perspective, the most important thing is appless experiences. And, I don't know if you ever had to deal with this, but this is the stuff I used to have to deal with with SFAs, was like, hey, how do I get them in the SFA? And then option number 2 was, we'll connect everything into the SFA. Right. That didn't help either. The more and more that we can move using AI into providing appless experiences for sales, the more effective tech will be for them. So it's like you see in the data, everyone says, well, I want to consolidate. Well, there's not a ton of proof that they necessarily want that feature in a product they already have. They actually want to get rid of a ton of apps, right? Consolidation is like for them paring back. And it makes sense, right? Because right now we're going from app full experiences. A sales rep's got all these tabs because everyone wanted to be a platform. Everyone had their own thing. And now we need to move as fast as we can using AI into an app-less experience. And so it's, and that I left Dreamforce going, when you start to put together all the pieces of everything that's happening, app-less experiences is like the name of the game for sales. And by the way, I just, on the AI side, there's already good things happening. You talked about bad sales reps,
I didn't say bad. I said less than the standard, less the perfect one.
Yeah, I know. I hope my friends are. I understand. Actually, so I understand people outside of sales. They remember the bad experiences, but there are a lot of sales reps out there who are amazing. But you wouldn't make the argument they're amazing because they have tech. Right, they're amazing because that human element that you want to move from on the commerce side is still there, and that's why you still see in tech companies they'll say, "Well, we're PLG or we're volume based," and when they panic, they go, "We need more humans." And what you'll see in the data is like there's a move back towards relationship sales, and the ability to create these relationships and the sales rep adding value. Now we have to enable that with tech, but that is really at its core.
That's the part that is interesting, because when you say we had to enable that with tech, and this was also during the pandemic. I mean, What did we do? The sales rooms, collaborative salespeople that were used to being in front of other people that just all of a sudden had to be on Zoom and talking to each other and all this stuff. And nobody went for steak dinners and golf dates anymore. Right. But we learned a lot about how technology helps. And this is the part that originally attracted me to this conversation. It's like, you've been doing this for so long that you can actually add the value of how the tech, including AI, can help this and how we can expand that to other areas. That's the part that is more interesting to me. I mean, I think that we learned a lot during the pandemic about technology. Yeah. That was the precursor of what you're saying, the CROs and the CISOs looking into the technology to understand it better so they can see how they can create better sales models, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I would say the confluence, the pandemic forced them to be more tech-centric.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could argue that anybody who was making a ton of investments at the time, I'm not sure they love everything that they already invested in, but they're ready for the next wave. That's why, there's about to be another wave here. AI is driving it. I would just remind you though, Esteban, you just made me think of something. I remember we were doing a panel years ago and it was about data. And there was a more tech-centric person up on the panel, or maybe two. And I had said something akin to what we're talking about today in terms of the rep experience. And you go, I remember this because it was the first time you said, you know what, Craig's right. I just went, oh my God, wow. I was like,
I would never say that.
Just setting the panel right now. But anyway, you said
I remember that.
Yeah, you said this, you guys, here's the thing what Craig said is the sales reps don't care where it came from and all this other sausage making. Yeah. Right. And, it's how we get it to them and all these types of things. So anyway, just wanted to remind you.
No, but that's true. The thing is that, look, there's an incredible amount of experience and knowledge that the salespeople have for being the tip of the spear in a lot of these technologies, right? I mean, if you really think about it, and this is my statement, and I will get a lot of friends for that, but here's the deal. To me, marketing lost the way when the CMO got too much power and didn't know what to do with it. When they get down to the 12 to 18 month, ability to stay in their jobs for 12 to 18 months and nowhere, 4 or 5 years. But they got to sit at the table, they lost it, right? And if you look at CRM being commoditized, which is my impression of CRM, the only two parts that actually matter are sales and service. And I do believe that sales changes first and service follows. So everything that you're saying, and what I wanted to discuss is how is sales changing and what can we learn from that we can apply, right? It's not just the AI, the ability to understand AI, but do you see changes that AI is bringing that would be interesting to highlight in sales that we can learn and apply into other areas, for example?
Yeah, for sure. And let's dig into that. But first, before I go, are you writing marketing off?
Always have, always will. And I'm a marketer, so imagine how shocked I am to say that.
Okay.
Marketing couldn't figure out how to get away from 13,000 applications into a viable solution. Yeah. That's the problem that they have. I'm not writing it off. They wrote themselves off by building 13,000 fucking applications to solve a simple solution. I mean, you see that stupid eye chart that they keep pushing out from our tech with all these companies. What am I supposed to do? Go and throw darts and the icons are in Lansing? That's my solution. I can make a decision between 400 vendors for one of 13 pieces. That's too much.
Right.
So I think they wrote themselves off. I'm not writing them off. I think they wrote themselves off. I think that, product marketing gain value over corporate marketing. I think corporate marketing does not really understand, much. They became driven by ad and social stuff into a different world. I think they wrote themselves off.
Huh. All right. Well, no, I mean, it's interesting.
Tell me I'm wrong. I'd be happy to be wrong.
I mean, but you're blaming the marketer for the fact that the Scott Brinker eye chart has hundreds of apps on it. It's not. I mean, why is that on the marketer?
Because they couldn't. Because instead of actually taking, look, let's use sales as an example.
Okay.
When you were doing sales, right? If somebody says, here's 1,000 apps to choose from, you wouldn't have chosen one. You would have chosen one that you like, that you get along with the people, that you think they have a track record. And then you actually tell them to fix it and make it work better and adapt to what you're doing. And they will do that. The marketers, instead of doing that, they build a new fucking app. Oh, this doesn't do what you want. Here, let's build another one. I mean, they went in a different direction. They got the power to sit at the table and make strategic decisions and they decided that it was more important to build a complex infrastructure and a tech stack than it was to actually solve the problem. I'm not blaming them. They did this on their own. They said that's the way that actually they move forward. You know, there's a reason why the service people were never given a seat at the table. We would do the same.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just sitting in the background. You know, we just take the calls. That's all we do.
All right. Well, yeah. No, I get it. We can come back to that because there is, you know, the AI effect on marketing might be really interesting there too. But I get where you're going on that. Like, you know, the reason there's 400 apps is because the market needs to sort these things out and to be able to solve that 1/13th problem and you know, with the same app over. But like, you know, it's funny because, you know, if you look at that Brinker slide, it's like everyone's like, well, consolidation is coming, but that thing just keeps growing. Yeah. And so anyway, on the sales side, so look, I think there's a couple things happening. So one I talked about, which is the
actually, hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go back. You're not writing market enough. Then you think that I'm wrong there, and I'm okay with being wrong. Don't get me wrong. I just want a good argument against it.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, look, I think number one is well, I actually think marketers led us through the pandemic better than anybody. They were instrumental in bringing people together. They were, you know, if you looked at the data, it was like, I think, you know, Gartner had 60% plus. At Topo, we had like 85% plus on everyone had to flip their target market, right? You had to get in a room and marketing helped lead that. And you had to reevaluate everything in the go-to-market, and marketing was the leader there. I feel terrible that you feel like they got to go back to the kids' table because they were instrumental there. But in the there's other things that are sort of emerging. So one is, forget, you know, if you take the Brinker side, for example, or you just did, you know what, you should just do one for all of SaaS. It's insane out there. And you're in a competitive environment right now in SaaS. You compete with your subcategory, the overall category, the market category, and everything SaaS. So like your ability to brand and differentiate is in category create, all of these things that are like old school blocking and tackling are critical here, because like you're going to go into a market, you can't just say we're going to go drive 1,000 leads, we're going to close all this business. You have to be perceived as the leader and associated with that category, because people are actually looking for products in a completely different way. And so the CMO has to enter the forefront here, because we're in these winner take all markets, or in, you know, by the way, I don't know if that's true. I mean, we're in a top 3 market, right? These SaaS markets are top 3, but so there's that where you have to be able to, someone has to be able to go, I want to go get a sales engagement platform. They know the 3 that they have to go look at, right? And you got to make it to that. And you got to write off everything around you. I mean, it's like in The Walking Dead, you know, where they finally took care of one side of the fortress that they're protecting, and then they just look over and there's just zombies coming out.
Well, but it's true, yes.
Huh?
That's true. So you know Ray Wang, right? I mean, he wrote the book. Everybody wants to rule the world. He talks about duopolies. Every market will end up being a duopoly. 2 major companies and a bunch of little zombies that don't matter, essentially, right? And similar to what you said, there's the top 3, there's the top 2. I don't care how many you have. But the reason we ended up there is, and this is where I blame marketing, and I write him off on having driven us to the wrong path. It's like the reason we end up there is like the concept of the stack, the technology stack that can have multiple vendors at every level, and like, you know, 6 million, 15,000 vendors that divide into 400 categories, whatever. That's what MarTech did, and that's why MarTech lost the power. And I don't see sales or service or virtually any other part of the enterprise going down that way. So then all these categories are you talking about?
Right. From a tech, you're talking about, but you're talking specifically from a tech perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. So that's funny. So you were talking specifically about MarTech, and I was talking about more traditional market. Would you agree though that a lot of the traditional CMO technology is absolutely
look, nothing. If you go past the technology, Nothing has changed in marketing in 40 years. We're still doing the same thing. We still identify target market, key persona, message, and everything else for product marketing. We still identify, audience and brand promise and all that. Marketing continues to be the same. The only thing that changed is the technology here, right, in the last 40 years.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with that. Okay. Good. Yeah. All right. So now you want to talk about sales.
So then go ahead. Let's take it to sales. I mean, same thing is happening, right? I'm seeing a lot more startups and small companies doing sales technology, right? I mean,
there's going to be we're at another takeoff point on sales tech.
Yeah.
And by the way, part of that process for everyone out, that will obsolete some of the sales tech from round one of the sales tech revolution.
Yes.
And now new ones. So I feel, so on the AI side, when I talk about the Atlas experience, that's sales productivity. They do what people don't quite understand is how much crap that they have to do in their day-to-day to keep things like data clean and to do, so I am, I think the market's starting to call it sales assistant. I just think it's bigger than that, right? It's the ability to, instead of having to log into Salesforce, just ask a question in Slack or Teams or whatever, and get that information back or, call it or whatever that might be. I mean, there's great stories out there. I got to tell you this one. I just heard from my buddy who's an analyst about this, like young RevOps person. They're basically, sales needs a snapshot of what's happening with their customers. We don't want them reading all the little things here and there. So they're, it's going to Zendesk. They're using, I think, Zapier or whatever to push it back.
Mm-hmm.
Goes to ChatGPT. It writes a nice update for the sales rep, and they know exactly what's going on in their accounts. Guys, that happens today. We should be excited about that. By the way, as a normal functioning person that's not in sales, I love that. Right. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see all of these. So on the Atlas experience is like, can we get the information we need in where we want it? And that will be huge. And then by the way, on the other side, just the RevOps folks who are trying to keep data clean by keeping them out of the apps and eliminating humans there, that's a win-win for everyone. So that's when I'm talking about repless experiences. I love AI for that. And that is going to be a war. I
agree.
Oh my God, man, we are seeing so many apps coming out there. I got to tell you this one. So, it's funny. I just did a panel, right? This is Classica, like we're all in the ivory tower. We go through this whole thing at the end. This person raised their hand. She goes, could you just give me like examples of what I should go do today? So this is it. So one is we're investors in Reggie, for example, right? And they will they're taking the next, but like just the prospecting is one of the hardest areas. So you take repless experience and then the ability to generate demand and prospecting, the ability for an app to provide the first optimized over time communication, and the second, the third, whatever is right for them. That has been huge. That is for me. Like I started by using ChatGPT to write a thank you note because I got a terrible gift. And I wanted to write an email, and I'm just dude. Now I'm like now I just everything when I'm writing an email, I get the first thing. But like the apps like Reggie are looking at the entire. They have these cadences or sequences where, and then can we start now? The AI will start to take on that workflow. These sort of vertically specific sales tech uses of AI, where it's like the AI will take over the prospecting stack. Now, don't worry, everyone. Humans still have to be a part of it. But it just makes us faster. It's way easier to be the editor than it is to be the creator. And so that's happening today. So it's so funny because I was talking to Sri from Reggie. I was telling him that, okay, so I'm going to recommend that you say, Craig, if they're not doing that, they're already behind. Right. So just being able to write, but now it's going to, the people are going to purpose build for these functions or these workflows that happen in sales. And that's going to be great for sales, right? It's just going to continue to optimize.
Which people will build this, the user or the vendors?
Well, okay, I think I think initially we'll see the vendors do it.
Okay, so if I follow what you're saying like we will see a somewhat of a replacement factor kicking in where the vendors will provide processes that can be dynamically optimized and adapted to what we need, that will replace the BDR, the first call, the dial for dollars part, right? Essentially.
Okay, before I get in trouble, Esteban, that was well said, but let me just clarify that. Okay. But first,
by the way, I said that. You didn't say that. I'm paraphrasing what he said.
Everyone note that it's on video.
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is, hold on. Let me clarify that. Which is, remember, we're seeing a movement towards everyone wants to build better relationship sales, right? With AI. Everyone thinks those things are separate. They are not. Those things go together. So, for example, by the way, I believe that the inbound SDR, the ones who follow up, they will be fully automated in 3 years. And anybody who argues with me, or not three is probably just me being, I don't know. I'm not into predictions, but you know what I mean? It's it's gradually being automated. It makes sense because, again, if we're going to have SDRs, we want them to do high value relationship building. And to be better. And if they're just going through and sending templates to people and sorting through leads, that doesn't make any sense. So that does clear out a human. That does clear out humans. It does. AI does take out humans, but it enhances the ones that we need right now, which are if AT&T comes in and then Joe's Parrot Shop comes in, send Joe's Parrot Shop to the AI. By the way, even the AT&T AI could do an initial take, maybe get a meeting scheduled, and then we go have a conversation.
Totally
Those are great. I mean, nobody can tell me that's not an amazing innovation, and it's real, and it can happen. It's happening now, and that makes total sense.
It does. And you know what? Let's make it even better. Before the initial call, let's put AI to work and create a really good profile. Find information that is like in distant places that we couldn't get access to before that we get access to, create a much better script and find the perfect person to run the script to.
Right.
Person that would, they'll pick up the phone and you say, I know what you want. And if you sell your soul to me, I'll give it to you tomorrow. And then that's your first meeting, right?
Yeah. That's an element that plays in here as well, which is we're trying to build relationship selling. That starts well before you even talk to them. And now, as you said, can we finally have a profile that is a usable profile, right? That tells us things that will allow us to be as relevant as possible to that buyer at all times, frankly, and across the life cycle. That is going to be amazing, right?
Yeah.
We've relied a lot on humans to do that.
How complex can this initial call be then, or this initial interaction? Because there's certain solutions that are incredibly complex that require a human to be solved.
Oh yeah,
right?
big time.
I mean, there's a few still left, but yeah.
But if that human can go into the call knowing their top 3 strategic priorities that just came out of their investor call, or what the CIO is doing on LinkedIn or on Discord on talking about their stuff, if we can have that data, yes, that is, we have all of these things sort of coming at us at the same time, which is why sales has to change, which is the buyers are more product centric. So we're moving product conversations, up to the front. Like in the old days, like an Oracle sales rep would say, whoa, we're not going to talk about product for the next 4 calls until I do a full CIA interrogation to understand what's happening in your business. Right now, buyers are saying, no, we want demos on the first call. You see SEs jumping on first calls. So to do that, that's where AI can help us with that, right? It's going to give us enough data so that we know enough about what they're trying to do so that we can help take what looks like a product conversation and make it a business conversation and have a better relationship. That's another beautiful thing in AI, which is just the part of this relationship selling thing. And it affects what I just talked about on, prospecting. It affects what we're talking about, and so it's all of this very exciting. Makes a ton of sense.
I believe that AI and automation are going to change sales dramatically. It's going to be a complete different thing. And you said 3 years. I think that leading, the early adopters and bleeding edge people will see results in 3 to 5 years. I think that the mainstream will be in the 5 to 7 years. And I think that 10 years from now, we will not recognize what Salesforce automation used to do and what sales is doing at the moment, right? I agree with you. But to me, the most important part of that is the ability of the CROs and the CISOs and everybody else to actually embrace AI. And like you said, they're trying to understand it. And now we need to embrace it and then go to the next level, right? So it's not going to be driven by stories and case studies? Or is that going to be driven by technology improving, or how do we get to those people to actually take this technology and embrace it and do something with it and experiment with it?
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I did a breakfast at Dreamforce. They did it for CROs. I'm like, I'll do it, but nobody's going to come. And it was packed.
Yeah.
So yeah, they want to know. I mean, look, the use cases are everything with sales, because at the end of the day, they want to know about AI, but they want to know, they have to understand it, and they have to understand it fast. So the use case building is really important. I think it's important for everything, but for selling to sales, you absolutely have to have that. The other thing that and part of that is we have to have the AI market, particularly the sales AI market. They love the technology. They need to turn it into a business conversation as fast as possible, because the sales leader is going to come in and say, well, what's AI, right? Again, I've been talking about, just during the portfolios, I've been talking to Sri at Regulus. He's like, yeah, they bring me in to come talk about AI, but we got to get to the point, like, what do I need to do? And what do I need to do now? I've talked to a number of CEOs in sales tech who are literally getting in the door because the VP of RevOps or the CRO says, we got to figure this AI thing out.
Okay.
But if you want to sell more and you want to go broad market, this has been, by the way, the problem for the sales tech market anyway, is that they've got to be able to they have to be able to translate this technology into usable use cases that bubble up into big business.
That is a key. That's right. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. I mean, and so, but we have to keep proving it. That's the thing, is that the AI right now, we're still in the curiosity phase. There are great, like I said, there are things happening in AI that work great, like the prospecting and those things. It's here, it's happening, and it's great. As we continue to do more, one of the big issues is, remember, in sales tech, it's the only organization where the employees can tell their boss to F off. You have thousands of
So it's obvious you never seen me work, but okay. I say it's obvious you never seen me work, but okay, sure.
Yeah, well, there was a warning at the beginning of this.
Yeah, exactly.
And I did censor it. But you could say get lost or whatever. It's the same thing. Yeah. It's like the sales reps. If you went right now and you were at SAP, I mean, if I went and try to tell those $1 million sales reps, you have to go do this, I got to choose my battles. And so that makes sales tech tough. And that's why we need use cases. And when you, and within the organization to roll it out, there's, global rollouts of AI are going to fail, right? Instead, you're going to start small, build use cases internally, and then you're going to catch like wildfire. And you have to start with pilots and POCs. But anyway, so, that's the thing, is that we have to keep building use cases, sharing them with the market, getting actual sales leaders to share them with the market, get RevOps people sharing with their peers make a big difference across the board in buying, but they do in sales, bar none. If they find out their competitors are becoming AI driven, that use case will be able to let you sort of catch fire within that category, because everyone will want to make sure that they are that is viewed as the competitive advantage, where there's been enough marketing, enough talk on news channels, enough Kara Swisher out there that says, what, you got to be, if you're not AI, you're not going to compete. And so that is driving stuff. But to get them to buy and to put this stuff in and to make it work, use cases, business case, that's everything. And we got to keep making them happen.
So let's take one step further, right? I mean, I was going to ask you what are the first three things you had to do, but that's the first thing. And I agree with you from the perspective of the salesperson. That's what the first thing is, find the use cases. So let's take it one further. Let's say that we find those use cases. Let's say we find a way to promote them and distribute them and people listen, right? Then what do you change metrics, or you use the same metrics? Are you after the same outcomes, or do the outcomes change when you do that? I mean, I know at the end of the day you want to make a sale, but making a sale where like start from a different perspective and you have a different path than the traditional one, doesn't that change the way you monitor whether it's working or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm still sort of playing, because I've met with a number of CROs who are saying, but doesn't that work itself out? Like that we can, maybe in an early stage of building a territory, we focus on units, right? And then over time we focus. I think that's what you're asking. Like we have.
How do you know it's working?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality of selling will bring us along. I know that's easy for me to say. Just wait. But no, you do. So I talked to a couple CROs. They're like, no, but that's the game's the game. Like that's the seller. I'm not going to change my incentives. They still have to do that. We're going to train them that because what you're alluding to is the fact that there's these reps in the Valley in particular who would say, I won't get out of bed for that deal or no deal, like a POC. I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to, I'm here to make $1 million W-2. And so I'm going to build the biggest deal possible and make it all complicated. And actually the buyers don't want to do that. And actually seller, you don't want to do that because you'll bring it in and it'll be gone. So yeah. So I mean,
so then, and I agree with you. I think that's it. That's the attitude. They said like you can tell your boss to fuck off or whatever, but like that's the attitude of the top 30% of salespeople that you were talking about. Like once they figure they can do something, they want to do the best they can. So how do you change them to say, okay, we're gonna take the first 40% of your deal, automate the hell out of that, so you won't even know that. You just come in, you're gonna be like,
how do you do it on the sale? Oh, got it. I thought you were talking about the seller. Yeah. So what you got to do is everyone should have essentially a guerrilla team in the sales org that have more of a predisposition for using tech. It probably won't be in your, if you can get some in that top 30%, you're golden. It's not always because, and you want them to always be first in line for tech. And by the way, all the new generation, that they are going to be like that. And that's where you start. You have to start there. And what you need to do is you need to sit. I mean, there's a lot of manual here, but it works, is to sit with them to get them to use it, to wipe away parts of their day. Because at the end of the day, what you want is something really human, which is you want one of those reps, preferably one who hits their number, if you know what I mean, be able to be the one to train the rest of the sales team. Because that's when it starts to work. So let's say you do a 60-day and he or she gets to, at the end of it, go, oh my God, I don't type anymore, right? How excited. Because sales reps, by the way, the sales leaders, sales rep, they're way more skeptical of salespeople than anybody, right? Because they know the game. So your peers have to help us do that. And they come out and they say, I'll show you. And then this is literally a very human thing. I just happened. Let me show you how I use it. And then you could take that use case, and you start to build out into different regions after that. I had one organization I was working with. The UK wanted tech. They were clamoring for it. So it was so easy for this person to change the way they rolled out sales tech. Everything went through the UK. These guys would take it in. They could not wait. They would get on. They'd be like, they figured out how to loop them into the demos and all this stuff. And they would be the test bed. And by the way, sometimes they said nay. But when they said yay, that thing was more likely to be adopted throughout the organization. It's a very human thing and it works. And sales reps should help people do that. That's part of what I was going to, which is like, I know you want the biggest deal, but help them understand to roll this thing out, right? Do you have 30 to 40 people? I don't know if it's a small sales force, 10, do you have a group that we can go run this through first? It's counterintuitive. Sales reps don't think but it will yield to huge results as a result, because of that. So anyway,
but you said, let me train you how you use it. But how about the follow up to that? How do you change it? How do you improve it? How do you make it better? How do you optimize it? Right? I mean, this as well as I do. The tech that comes out of the box is like pretty simple. Yeah. You need to make it better. So short of you figure out one way to do it and you train people in one way to do it, but there's got to be 100 other ones, right?
Right.
And short of waiting for the next generation, like you said, that will be eager to do this. How do we, in the interim, actually get people that may not be eager to use the technology to figure out how to adapt it to their way of working, not like the way of working? Can we do that at all?
Yeah, you can. I mean, look, by doing what I just described, there is a whole like taking a use case from a seller who they feel is just like them, you will roll that into them.
Mm-hmm.
The way you crack the top 30 so first of all, you do have to write off people. There's a group from my age up who won't change, and you just got to go. I mean, you just have to deal with it. If they're getting their number and that's how they like to do things, great. And if you can slowly but surely help them do things, you have to do it manually with them. It's a different breed of person. I can tell you right now, most inside sales teams, most folks that came up through inside sales, they have a better predisposition towards tech. And so rolling through them is a lot easier. The real issue is what you said. It's the 30%. It's the folks from my generation who they get tech, they want it, but they're too afraid to break. They're habitual people. So it's hard to do. So I've told people, look, it's if you know, it's going to make them better. We gotta and to break in there, you gotta start with a little bit of manual and showing them, sit down with them and show them how it works in their environment, understand how they work. And then you have just a whole new slew of use cases. You have, oh my God, the guy who does $10 million deals who didn't like tech before. It's a great story, actually. You know, Craig hates tech, never liked tech, did $10 million a year and still writing on a notepad, right? But then they showed him how to go and like how he could just use his email to look everything up without having to go in that CRM thing. And by the way, he wasn't even going in the CRM. And
that's right.
Now I'm going to catch to the other, that. So it's inverse, right? The top 30 are not necessarily tech centric, right? And maybe the middle will sort of take that up, and we should be able to lift them from B's to B pluses. That is part of the goal there. I know you want to.
Can you go from a C plus to an A minus potentially with that, you think, or it's just more like a small incremental improvement?
No, I think I think as AI continues to get better, there's no doubt, because we'll be able to tell them more specifically what the best sellers do. And then we'll actually be able to do a lot of that for them. And once you do that, then that changes the game in terms of the lift we can provide. So yeah.
So are we potentially looking at the end of the, lower 10% douchebag used car salesperson that everybody hates, who's just, a cliche of a bad salesperson, or will they continue to exist?
Nothing can save them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So we're gonna replace them with computers and scripts.
Well, yeah, but by the way, the car dealer guys they're heavily automated these days. They got a lot going on. And they don't. They don't wear that much cologne anymore and smack their gum anymore when you.
No, but you know what they do is if you go to a car dealership these days, they said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Joe Smith," and he said, "Oh, hi." They say, "What's your name?" And if you give them your name, you're done. Because the next thing they do, they say like, "Oh, you know what? My manager is calling me. I'll be right back." And they go into their fucking computer, they type your name, they get everything they can, and they said, "So you like fast cars and loose women? Let me show you what we have for you."
Yeah. I know, it's amazing. But but think about it. Like, there's a lot of cool things we can start to think about. Like, could we go? Everyone says, look, there's a part of the sales community that need to be out of sales, and can we lift quotas and get better? If we do what you just said, C plus to A minus from the middle, or the bottom of the middle, then we're gonna hit our number without having to sort of hold the riffraff at the bottom. So there's a lot for everyone to be excited about. And that's the thing. If we can wipe away a lot of the stuff that bogs salespeople down and also make them more effective on how they communicate, then we're going to have better experiences with sales reps. You're going to like them. You know what? I'll check back in with you and see if you actually like them again.
No, I never disliked them. It's just I'm not one of them. I suck at sales. I'm horrible. Every salesperson I ever met will actually talk to me for 5 minutes and say, "Man, you must leave so much money on the table." And yes, I do, because it's not what I'm for. But that's not what drives me. But that's different. But let me turn this around, and we've got about 10 minutes, and the last part of this conversation, right? How does this change things for the buyer? I mean, let's say that all this happens, and I agree with you. Everything's going to happen. Automation happens. We're going to get rid of the lower part. It's going to make it simpler, more personalized. The 30% is going to come down to the center and make it a bit. So how does this change things for the buyer? What does the buyer benefit from all this thing being implemented?
Well, my hope is that, I mean, look, if you take the current buying situation, so everyone's got their number, 60% down the buying cycle, 50. But here's the thing. They're 60% down the buying cycle and they're nowhere. They're more confused. There's too much lookalike information out. It is impossible to understand your buying decision. So everyone's like, the buyer's more educated. They read a lot, they did a lot, but they want to be educated. That is the thing. They are desperate for that. They want to make good decisions, because the decision right now for them is every decision they make to spend money reflects on them. The pressure is on, which makes them more likely to say no and enter in the status quo. So what we need to do, so what can AI do for us as we help them through that process? So that, number one is, if we can more quickly and better get to the strategic outputs that they need to provide to their organization and to build our narrative, use case, et cetera, for them, potentially educate them before we even talk to them based on those things. Marketing right there, right? Is those are the types of, that's better for the buyer. They got to sort through these things. It's still going to be hard. The big one is on the sales side. The AI will allow us to be able to make good decisions on the information they need. We're going to see what works and what doesn't work. We're going to get them into the right, into the right path. The other thing we'll see, by the way, from a tech perspective, we're going to see more and more self-serve demos, because everyone, one of the things, the buyer's reaction to the amount of noise out there has been, this whole product-led idea is bigger than just free trials. It's actually, the buyer is product-led in their buying, even in the enterprise. And what that means is that's one of the areas they've had to gravitate to, because they can't figure out what all this stuff is about. So they got to see the product faster and earlier than before, because it's too hard to differentiate. So one of the things, you'll see on the tech side is more and more sandboxes and ability to play before you even talk to someone, or even during that whole process.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like, the buyer will have the ability to play with the product before they even talk to a salesperson? Or
there are links on G2 right now that go to a test box test environment for a person, that before they've even talked to sales, and they can go in and get right in. That's interesting to me, by the way.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. I'm in another tech-enabled way that we can help the buyer. So yeah, I mean, I tried to buy, and when I've tried to buy some stuff, man, I go in there and I was in the game. I was an analyst, and it's like, it's no wonder that people have to call their friends.
It's interesting what he just said, because we have a saying in service, which is like, there's no better service than no service. The service call that never happened is what we aim for. That's the holy grail. And you're kind of going in the same direction with sales. Essentially, you're saying, if there's no salesperson involved and you bought it, does it really count? And I believe it does. And I believe that that's going to be, eventually half plus of the sales will happen without the assistance of a salesperson, right? But to me, the most interesting part is like what you said. I mean, the salespeople used to be both the gatekeeper and the information providers, and the internet did away with the information providing part. There's so much information out there. Most of it is worthless. And part of what I blame marketing, because I've been part of this, is like marketing produces a lot of useless information, which is not what they need.
Well, that I agree.
28-page white paper on what security means to a utilities company. If I'm a utilities person, I know all the stuff that's in there. So all you're doing is just showing that you understand what I'm going for. It doesn't do anything, right? Yeah, so I'm trying to sound like, I agree with you that all this is going to change, and I'm trying to find the one morsel that, we got 5 minutes. So what's the one piece of wisdom that a buyer can take out of this, that instead of saying, oh man, more salespeople shit that I don't want to deal with, they can say, this is what they can offer me that would be very valuable, and that I can see how the technology would actually help the seller offer that.
Yeah. So by the way, I'm following up on something you said before. So that AI may hurt the CMO more on creating worthless content.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So, that's the problem now, and now it's going to be now we have full factories creating the same content.
It's 1000% job security for me, so I'm totally in favor of that.
Yeah. So I think, it's the same thing I would tell a sales leader even before AI, but I'll just start there, which is you have to start with, you have to have this sort of view of the buying process and the sales process and what's happening there. And you want to look for points of latency and or a drastic fall off. In most cases, like I think most people can start today with outbound prospecting because the technology is there, right? You can turn to AI to help you figure out what to say, how many times to say it, what channels to use. Number two is AI is allowing you to use new channels, like video. The first iteration of sort of video outreach was, let's give a sales rep, a camera and track it, with AI. Now the organization can templatize that with minor personalization from a sales rep. You could do that right now, right? So those things, I think, look, for most people, prospecting is an issue. Pipeline is like one of their biggest issues. They've fired a bunch of SDRs. They're expecting sales reps to be unicorn sales reps and do everything. That's a great area of AI enablement right now. And so for me, I tell people that's a really good place to start because it's tried and true. The use cases are there. It's clear that it works better than sending someone to spend 5 hours to go write an email and then only sending one. Like that whole area is a point of pain for B2B, and that's where I would start.
Yeah. Okay. So we got 3 minutes. That's good. I mean, I think that what you managed to do very, very well and very successfully is to explain how a very traditional endeavor like sales, which from the beginning of CRM, we said no salesperson will ever use it. They don't like technology, and they still don't, right? I mean, they learn how to use it, but you explained really well and in great detail how a very standard, stalwart, old-fashioned, part of the enterprise could actually embrace AI and be successful at it, and that's what I was looking for, because with that we can actually say, okay, how do we extrapolate this to other parts of the enterprise? How does marketing, sales, and production, and manufacturing, and shipping, and everything can actually, embrace AI? So that I really appreciate that. But the last part, I know that I miss a million things, but what did I miss, or what didn't I ask, or what didn't I say, or what can I answer, you think, or what's a perspective that's missing in all this?
Well, I do think your original point, which I derailed us on actual, the commerce and B2B, I definitely, when I started to work outside of SaaS, you could see that is the same storyline that we had throughout this podcast, which is there's mundane buying and selling that we don't need to have happen between people. And so as we move towards commerce models, that is affecting B2B, and you see that. On the SaaS side, that's really product led, and a lot of the ability to effectuate license buys online, and that's real too. So it's a whole big conversation for us still on the commerce side. So hopefully you'll invite me back and we can
I would love to have it.
I'm not doing the data governance. No, I will not be there.
No, that's okay. You're not stupid enough to let yourself be roped into that. Is what you're saying, right? So, that's okay. But that would be a fantastic conversation next week. But this was good. I'd love to have you back to talk about e-commerce and how that changes the way we buy and technology and everything. So we'll do that in a future show for sure. But for now, I want to thank you very much. I want to leave on time for once. Thank you so much for being here. It was a great conversation, and we'll see everybody next week. Thank you.